right. Welcome, everyone, to the Agent Power Huddle Mindset Monday. Man, I don't know about you guys, but I had a busy weekend this weekend. We got Christmas coming up. Um, so, yeah, I'm glad that you guys are here. Great to see Kelly, Reggie, Diane, Lauren. Thank you for being here today. Um, and today is a topic that is something that I've become increasingly more passionate about over the last, I would say, 6 to 12 months. And it's kind of funny because I feel like I've been in a position most of my career where this has been really important, but I never really saw myself in this position until recently. But the funny thing is, we're all in this position all the time. So what I'm talking about here is leadership. And today, what I wanted to talk about today was basically an encouragement to all of us to begin to see ourselves as leaders, because we are all leaders in some facet of our life. Some of you here on this call, you know that I used to be a teacher and I used to be a basketball coach, and I used to coach a whole bunch of different sports. And so I was in a traditional leadership role, but ironically, I never really saw myself as a leader. You know what? Because it was like, oh, I'm in a leadership position, but I'm not a very good leader. And so I remember the first time I read a leadership book, and I was just like, you know, oh man, there's all these cool ideas and all these things. I wish I would have known this when I was teaching. I wish I would have known this when I was, coaching and all that kind of stuff. And still, even at that point, I never saw myself as a leader. I started growing a real estate team. Still, I just never really saw myself as a leader. I guess maybe what you could call it is imposter syndrome, maybe to a certain extent. But one thing that I'm beginning to realize is that we are all leaders. We are all in leadership roles in some facet of our life. Anybody that we are working with, partnering with, our friends, our family, our clients, maybe team organizations, whatever. These are all leadership roles. And so today, I really just want that's kind of the point of today, to encourage you to think of yourself as a leader. And so why? Why is that important? Why is it important for us to see ourselves as a leader? And so that what I want to do today is I'm actually going to kind of go through why it's so important to see yourself as a leader, what it is going to do to improve your life, what it's going to do to improve the lives of the people that are around you, and try to just go through some of the high level benefits of seeing yourself as a leader. And I'm going to kind of equate it to my days as a teacher and how, how I actually stepped into a lot of these roles unintentionally, but how it made me a better human being and how it helped me impact the lives of these people. One of my claims to fame in real estate is that I've lost count. I think it's maybe 5 or 6 former students or players who were 13, 14 when I was working with them, my son's age. I've now helped them buy houses, and they're having kids. And, to me, that is just one of the coolest things ever. And I think that it speaks to the fact that even though I didn't see myself as a leader, I was still in a position to influence people, and I was able to have an impact in their lives. And so to me, that's like the greatest compliment ever. So to me, that's proof that whether you see yourself in a leadership role or not, you are. So let's just get intentional about it and do it to the best of our ability. So I've started reading this book recently called John Maxwell High Road Leadership. I don't know if any of you have read this book, but man, what a great book. I would highly recommend this for anybody to start reading it. And it's funny. It's not anything earth-shattering, right? It's not anything that's like, oh, I've never heard that before. But the way that John Maxwell puts all of these things together after 50 years of being a leader, man, it just really paints a great picture for the benefits of being a leader. So let's jump into that a little bit. So what I'm going to do is he's got 12 different, I guess, strategies or strategies for being the best leader that you can possibly be. What are the types of mentalities that somebody should possess if they're going to be a high road leader? And so in his definition, a high road leader is somebody who takes the high road, right? So a low road leader might be somebody who, I'll share a story. When I was flipping houses, I partnered up with a guy on like 2 different, or maybe it was 3 different transactions. It was a friend of a friend. And, he was kind of a savvy business guy or whatever. But if we're calling a spade, he was just a complete piece of, he was not a good person, in my opinion. He was rude to people. He was mean. Every single contractor that we worked with them one time because they would be like, hey, how much to paint this house? $1,000? How about 800? And they would be like, I can't really even make any money. It's like, okay, fine. We'll go hire this guy over here. Fine. I'll do it for 800. And then they would never come back. He would treat them like crap. He would speak poorly to them. He didn't have any respect for them. So his whole thing was, if I can get this job done for $800, then I've won. So that's a taking mentality. That is a low road mentality towards leadership. And I was new in the business and was trying to kind of figure out, like, is this the way business is done? Is this the right way to do it? And it just felt icky to me. And so him and I, parted ways. I did actually build relationships with some of those contractors, and I was able to retain them for a really long time because I treated them with respect. So that's the difference between low road leadership and high road leadership. Low road leadership is like, you lose, I win. High road leadership isn't even so much win-win, but it's about a collaborative environment where we both get to grow and move forward. And so that's really what he's talking about in this book. So the first principle that he talks about is bringing people together. So for those of you that know me, you know that I'm huge on community. Why? Because we are community-based beings. We need community. We need collaboration. It's what drives us forward as people. And so one thing that I just want to touch on here is he talks about how disrespect has become very common in our society today. It's so easy to be disrespectful to somebody. I disagree with you politically or whatever. That gives me the right to treat you like you're less than somebody else. And, that is divisive. We have a lot of divisive things going on in our culture right now. And he talks about, if we want to be a high road leader, we have to be able to bring people together. We have to find common ground. And so let's just think about this for a second. If our objective, if we dive in and we go, you know what? I do want to be a leader. I am going to accept the fact that I am a leader in some facet of my life, and I'm going to work to be the best leader that I possibly can. The first thing that we need to do is we need to learn how to bring people together. So if everybody on this call sees themselves as a leader, and everybody on this call becomes a connector, and everybody on this call decides that they're going to make the world a better place and they're going to find common ground with people, what does that mean for the world at large? It's going to be better. It's going to be better for us. We're going to feel more connected. We're going to feel more fulfilled. The people that we're connecting with are going to feel more fulfilled. I was just talking about this with Allison this morning. For the first time in my career, first time, this includes education and all of my real estate career, for the first time, I finally feel like I have found a community of people who support my growth. There's people who have done things that I want to do. There's people that are asking for my advice. There's people who are just friends. But I finally feel like I have some kind of community. And what I can tell you is it has made me feel more confident, more powerful, more engaged. I mean, just all more powerful, all of these things. And so when we step into this role of a leader and we decide, yes, I am a leader, You're totally right. Like I am going to be the best leader that I possibly can. The first thing we have to do is we have to bring people together. It's going to make you feel better. It's going to make them feel better. It's going to make the world a better place. So, once again, going back to how I opened this whole thing, why should we all be leaders? Well, because if we're all bringing the world together and we're not disrespecting each other, we treat each other with respect, we look for common ground, that's freaking awesome. We should all be doing that, every single person, right? Okay, here's the next thing that he talks about, valuing all people. So this one really resonated with me as I was reading through this, because I do feel like I value all people, but I think John Maxwell, part of what sets him apart and makes him who he is he's so good at this. And I look at like the things that nobody ever sees. Like when I get annoyed at somebody in traffic, God, you dumb idiot, whatever, right? That's devaluing somebody. Nobody knows it, nobody sees it, except for me. So if I want to be a high-level leader, I have got to get better at being a good human being by seeing the value in every single person. That person that cut me off, that person that was a jerk. Right now I'm dealing with, we're supposed to go to Italy this summer. They canceled they canceled one of my flights. They moved it back 24 hours. Now I've got to call into these call centers and deal with these poor people who get these nasty phone calls all day. I'm pissed off, and I have to find a way to communicate what I need to communicate with them and still value them as a human being. And that can be really difficult and challenging. It's something that we have to practice. But once again, if we see ourselves as a leader and we decide I'm going to be the best leader that I can be, it forces us to step up our game. The old way of doing things does not work anymore. If you see yourself as a leader and you want to get better, then it forces you to grow and see people for who they are, which is harder said than done sometimes. So once again, if we all see ourselves as leaders, then we're all going to start valuing people more. And that makes the world a better place. This is why we should see ourselves as a leader. The third thing that he talks about, acknowledge your humanness. So, one thing that I think a lot of us really like about comedians is they have a very clever way of being self-deprecating, which can be a double-edged sword, right? But there is something about acknowledging that you are just as flawed as everybody else. And guess what? You want to be valued. So guess what? That flawed person that we think is such a they just want to be seen. They want to be valued. And so when we recognize our humanness, man, I really screwed the pooch on that one, or I really messed this up, or man, I could really do better here. We start to see it's not about beating ourselves up. It's about recognizing where we're deficient and trying to make it better. But every deficiency we recognize in ourselves and admit it, it gives us the opportunity to grow, which makes us better. But it also gives us the ability to see that flaw in somebody else and have compassion for that flaw that they have. Once again, going back to seeing their value. So how does seeing ourselves as a leader help us grow? It makes us recognize our humanness. It makes us say, yeah, I'm jacked up sometimes, but I'm going to do it better. And that will lead to a more fulfilled life. That's personal growth and development. That's what it is, constantly trying to become better. All right, the fourth thing is do the right things for the right reasons. It's basically just being in integrity. Do you you see someone, God, what was it? My son left his headphones at his basketball practice at an elementary school here in the area, or a middle school, and somebody just took them. Like, why wouldn't you just go turn them into the lost and found? You know what I mean? Like, when you get into those situations, are you in integrity with who you want to be? And if we see ourselves as a leader, and I'm not saying they should have done it one way or the other, but as a leader, if we are like, yes, I want to be a better leader, then what that means is we have to start being more in integrity with who we want to be, how we want to show up. And so for me, there's definitely times where I look back and I'm like, yeah, I kind of took advantage of that situation, or man, I should have done that a little bit better or whatever. So that kind of goes back to like acknowledging my humanness, like, dang it, I screwed that up. I'm not going to do that next time, drawing a line in the sand. And then slowly over time, I act more and more and more and more and more in integrity with the person that I want to be. Being in a leadership position forces me to do that more. And so that's why I'm encouraging you to do this, because if you see yourself as a leader, it will force you to get more and more integrity, because people are going to be watching you. If you don't see yourself as a leader, then nobody's ever watching you. You can do whatever in the hell you want. Like, you're not improving, you're not growing. But if you're like, no, I'm a leader. People are watching me. I am influencing people. I have to be at a higher level of integrity because I am a leader than everybody else. You are going to be a better person. You are going to have a bigger impact. You are going to feel better about yourself. You're going to have more confidence. You're going to be more successful. So seeing ourselves as a leader makes us step our game up. I remember when I was teaching, I told this story. We just recently posted a video about this story, but my very first year teaching was an inner city school. Most of the kids spoke Spanish. Most of them were bilingual, but then there was about 20 of them, almost an entire class, that spoke no English. And I spoke zero Spanish. I was 24 years old, had no idea what I was doing. They just gave me a curriculum that was in a 3-ring binder, and they said, go. And I was responsible for teaching these kids science. And it was really, really, really hard. But what it did for me is it forced me to go into my box of tricks, because I'm standing at in the front of this classroom every single day, being forced into a leadership position. And if I had not been in that position, I could have been comfortable. I could have been just moving right along. But because I was standing in front of that classroom and I had to deal with this, I became very resourceful. I had to figure this out. And so a lot of these traits started to come out, even though I didn't know it. I had to find a way to bring the group together. I had to find a way to, I had to admit that I was flawed. And I'm trying, guys. I can't speak Spanish. I'm sorry. I'm trying the best that I can. Like, this is my first year, and seeing some of the things that they were going through in their lives with their families and all that kind of stuff. Like, all of these things naturally kind of happened as a teacher. When I was teaching when I moved schools and I was teaching in Highlands Ranch, I remember they changed my curriculum. I was supposed to teach earth science. And then they said, never mind, we're changing the curriculum this year. You have to teach chemistry. Well, I got like D's in every single chemistry class that I ever took. It's my worst subject possible. But when I was standing up in front of that classroom, I was so motivated to not look like an idiot in front of all these 8th grade kids whose parents work at Lockheed Martin. So, that's a very tough position to be in. But because I was forced into this position of leadership, I was forced to grow. I was forced to get better. I was forced to learn chemistry so that I could be there for these other people. And so once again, by forcing ourselves into a position of leadership, we have to grow. We have to. That's why I want all of us to be a leader. So let's just go through a few more of these. All right. Give more than you take. What does this mean? This one, I think, has the most nuance to it, because giving does not mean folding. Giving does not mean being taken advantage of. Giving means that we are constantly looking for opportunities to grow other people, to help other people. It could be financially through donations. It could be through our time. It could be through our expertise. It could be through all of these different things. There's lots of different ways to give. It could literally be a compliment to somebody. One thing I've started doing, I've been doing this for the last 6 months or so, and it's been a pretty interesting little experiment, is people who are working, I don't know how to have whatever, mundane jobs, regular jobs, right? Like the people who are checking my card when I go to the rec center, people who are checking me out at places, people at the gas station, whatever. I've made a very conscious choice to look them in the eye Even if I'm in a rush, stop, look them in the eye and say, how are you doing today? That much. And sometimes people are kind of like startled by it because most people are just like, hey, how's it going? And they just walk by. That's a form of giving. I see you. People want to be seen. It's just a form of I see you. So once again, this leadership role that I have finally embodied is forcing me to get better at seeing people, and I'm practicing it. So give more than you take. Constantly look for ways to give back. Develop emotional capacity. So once we decide that we are a leader in any facet of our life, we have just taken on more responsibility. This is why a lot of people don't do it. It's easier to say, I don't lead anybody. That's easy. When we take on a leadership role, there is a new responsibility that there's a new weight that is put on our shoulders. Why? Because it forces us to step up, forces us to do the things that are hard so that we can demonstrate to somebody else what this looks like. And so what that ends up doing is it can put us into a position where we feel overwhelmed, where we feel like we've just got too much going on. There's too much responsibility, like a panic. Oh my God, I'm responsible for this other person and helping other people, and it's a lot. And so he talks about in this book developing emotional capacity. And so this comes in phases. At least I've seen this in my life. I remember the first time I had like, 2 or 3 deals going on at the same time, and I thought my head was going to explode. And then a few years later, I was doing 10 deals at a time. I thought my head was going to explode, but at that time it would be like 3 at a time. That's nothing. So as we move forward, as we continue to grow and develop, our ability to handle more and more becomes higher. And so he talks about developing an emotional capacity. And what he's really talking about here is letting things go that don't matter. In fact, I just went hunting with my son this last week, and we had a couple opportunities. This was his first time hunting, and it didn't work out. And for certain parts of it, I blamed myself, and I was like dwelling on it. It was just like, oh man, and if this would have happened, and that would have happened, but da. And then I read this chapter as I was going through that, and I'm like, oh my God, what a waste of energy. I can't change it. It is what it is. Like, what are we going to do to move forward? By letting go of all the nonsense, the cyclical, emotional, mental games that we play, I reserved a whole bunch of energy. That's developing emotional capacity, letting go of the things that we don't have control over and focusing on what we can control, because that's going to allow us to become a better leader because we are now focused and we're not dwelling on old stuff. All right, a couple more. Place people above your own agenda. So I always tell people that the only reason that I make money in real estate is because I do my job. I wouldn't even say exceptionally well. I do my job and I put other people's interests above my own. So they refer me and they work with me. It's not about me. It's about them. And so if you're in real estate, we haven't even talked about this, but if you're in real estate and you're doing real estate deals, guess who you're leading? The people that you work with. They're coming to you when the, what hits the fan. They're coming to you and saying, hey, what do we need to do here? And they are expecting leadership. They're expecting some level of competency and confidence, understanding of what's going on. You are leading them. If you freak out, guess what they're going to do? If you start crying, guess what they're going to do? You step up confidently, guess what they're going to do? So they're watching us. They're expecting us to lead them. So, but just put their other people above our own agenda. Make sure that we are doing what we're doing for the right reasons. And once again, when we take on this leadership role, it forces us to analyze all of these things. Am I doing this? How am I showing up when the what hits the fan with my clients? Ooh, how can I do it better? There's the work. There's the beauty of it. So please see yourself as a leader and do more and more and more of this work. And it never ends, by the way. Embrace authenticity. I remember early on in my career when I would go to listing appointments and I would turn on Realtor Dan, right? and we would be negotiating something, and I would, take these tactics from a book and try to implement them, and it was all rocky, and it just didn't work with me. It wasn't an authentic way to speak to people, and I found that kept making things worse. And when I finally was just like, you know what? Like I kind of cut through the BS and just like, this is here's what this is, and this is, and this is, and I think we should go this way. And they go, great, boom, things started working better. That's authentic to me. So same thing with our organization. I try my best to be authentic. I show up how I like what you see is what you get. And as a leader, it is freeing, by the way, to be authentic and not have to put on masks and all this other BS. It is talk about freeing up emotional capacity. Whew. So as a leader, we need to be authentic because we're going to attract the people that we naturally attract, and we're going to deter the people like that guy that I used to work with when I was flipping. He didn't want to work with me either because I wasn't, we didn't operate the same way. So by being authentic, it's going to really bring people with you wherever you're going. Take accountability for your actions. I mean, that was pretty self-explanatory, right? Once again, if we see ourselves as a leadership role, if we are like, people are watching me and I'm going to pass the buck to that person, like, oh, that's not me, that's their fault, right? Like, that's going to feel icky. If we take on that leadership role and we know people are watching us and we know we have to lead by example, when there's a problem, we're going to say, that was me. That was my bad. Here's what I'm going to do differently next time. We have to be willing to take on that responsibility. Live by a bigger picture, visionaries. As leaders, whether we're leading kids or a team or whatever, there has to be some kind of bigger picture. How do we want our kids to show up? How do we want our friend who's going through some turmoil? How can we lead them through that? How do we want them to be when this thing is all over, right? Have a vision for where we're going with things. Don't keep score. So a tit for a tat, right? So, Diane helped me out on Tuesday, so now I owe her one and I'll help her on Wednesday. But unless she helps me on Thursday, I'm not helping her on Friday, right? Like that's keeping score. So don't keep score. Just go back to this whole idea of give more than you take. You will get taken advantage of sometimes. I've been taken advantage of. I'm sure we all have. It will happen. But then we look at it and we go, oh, I see where that went off the rails. Not going to do that again. We're not going to do that with that person again, or I'll do it differently with that person. So don't keep score. What's the book? Go Givers Gain More, right? Just look for opportunities to give and good things will happen. And what he talks about in this book, after 50 years of leadership, he says that the thing that adds the most fulfillment in his life is his attitude of giving. And people have taken advantage of him too. But he says that after 50 years of doing this, the thing that is most fulfilling in his life is the fact that he gives and gives and gives. Nothing makes him feel better than being a giver. And then desire the best for others. So you see a lot of these kind of overlap and kind of weave together, right? There's a lot of, I would say, repetition to it, but desire the best for others. So basically, if we had to summarize this whole thing, why am I encouraging you to be a leader? Because if you see yourself as a leader, it means you recognize people are watching you. It means you recognize you're that person in the front of the classroom going, uh-oh, I better figure this out because I'm responsible for helping other people. And if I'm going to help other people, I got to get my stuff together. I've got to be the best version of me to help these people be the best version of them. That's where the magic happens. And so at the end of the day, it's really about making ourselves better so that we can make other people better, which means we have to put people first. We have to be willing to give to them unconditionally. And the more that we authentically make ourselves better, the more we can make other people better. And when you do those two things combined, then I just don't know how you could not live a very rich, fulfilled life. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or you want to dive into this stuff more. It's something I'm super, super passionate about, and I would love to talk to more people about it. High Road Leadership by John Maxwell is the book that we went through. So appreciate you guys being here. If you have any questions, I'll stick around. Thanks for being here, by the way.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yes. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good seeing you, Kelly.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.